Hi, my name is Luna, and I am a witchy daughter. I'm a witchling.
Hi, I'm Lynx, and I am a witch who is raising a beautiful, powerful, witchy daughter.
On this episode of Witchy Wit, Raising a Priestess, Not a Princess, we interview Luna and Lynx and talk about their relationship as witchy mother and daughter.
Stay tuned. Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
Races,
and backgrounds.
with a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true. Our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 46, Raising a Priestess, Not a Princess.
We just heard the voice of Luna, who is do you prefer witchette or witchling?
I like witchling. That's my favorite
Witchling.
term that
Witchling.
you guys have suggested so far.
Okay. So this is a witchling that is kind of circle adjacent. I think you've come to maybe a couple of our rituals that have been open to young women. And we are interviewing Luna and her mother, Lynx. And this is all about raising a witchy daughter.
Thanks so much for being here. Well, as we get started today, I'd love to just jump in and ask Luna, how could you introduce yourself? Tell us how you identify.
Absolutely. So my craft name is Luna. My pronouns are she, her, and generally I refer to myself as a witch, but in some circumstances I do prefer the term pagan.
Thank you. And Lynx, what about you?
Hello, everybody. My name is Lynx. I am a witch. I consider myself a witch. I refer to myself as a witch. In most circles where I would feel free to share how I identify, I'm pretty solidly a witch.
Thank you. So let's just dive in. So, first of all, as we ask these questions, let them take you wherever you want to go. But we'd be really interested in hearing, how did you first know you were a witch? Okay, and either one of you could start.
So I guess I'll start on this one. So last night, whenever Mom and I were looking over some of the questions that you guys had submitted to us, I had a really hard time with this one. And she actually suggested that it's been very normal within our household and very welcoming and open and things like that. So I don't have an exact moment where I was like, this is exactly what the term is for this. It's just kind of eventually just a term kind of slid into my vocabulary and I just kind of adapted it. And so I know we talked about it last night that she has a lot of, I guess, memories or experiences whenever I was younger where she's like, yep, that's what it was.
Thank you. What about you? What about with you, Lynx?
So whenever I think back on Luna, I have a couple of very clear memories that pop up where I recognize that her witchiness was showing through. My witchling was showing herself. One is when we were at a women's gathering, and Luna was running around with all of the maidens, and we were looking. I was sitting with my sister and some other people, and we were looking out over a field where the maidens were playing, and everyone was kind of communally watching everyone else's maidens. And my sister kind of elbowed me and pointed, and Luna was just hauling across this field. She was just running through the grass. She was feeling the wind. She had her hands out and was kind of feeling the grass with her hands. And she was wrapped in this piece of chiffon fabric that was just trailing behind her. And she stopped and bent down. And when she stood back up again, she had a fistful of these little flowers. And then she just took off running again. And my heart was beating fast and I was feeling the sun. And it was such a beautiful moment. And she was all about the experience and feeling her skin. It was an incredibly witchy, powerful moment at right then. Then whenever I was thinking about this question with Luna earlier, it occurred to me that if I sit down and think about it, it's always been part of who Luna was. If I think back to when she was an infant, all the way back to whenever she was brand new born, she's been so connected to the element of water. When she was born and we put her into her first bath, she just stilled and peaced and relaxed and started moving her limbs and exploring with the water. But since then, if she's upset, put Luna in water. If she's not feeling well, stick her in water. She's upset, angry, water. Water is her element. And that energetic connection, 2020 hindsight, goes all the way back.
So that's amazing. First of all, it's these experiences and how she was experiencing the elements. Just hearing you tell me about them, I can kind of feel it. Great description. The other thing that I would like to just point out is that had she had a different mother, they would. Well, I don't know if she would have done all this stuff, but also you recognized it because of who you are, right? And so I'm wondering, how, well, we'll get into like the cross feeding and stuff, but your recognition of that, I think, is so important. And maybe you'd like to share a little bit about yourself. Like, when did you first realize that you were a witch?
Well, I have been solidly a witch for, I'd say probably 18 years. But when Luna was born, I was on the tail end of considering myself Christian. And so I have all of these memories that are translated through that particular lens. But my experiences, once I opened myself to experiencing the world through this different lens of spirituality, my experiences that I had distrust for fell into place as being natural and normal, at least for me. So I see myself going way back. When Luna was about 3 years old, I realized that I had outgrown my previous spiritual system, and it was founded on my very firm belief that my spirituality is rooted in self-determination, but also in my responsibility for my actions. That I cannot place blame or choice in anyone else's hands. I am responsible for what I do and the outcome of what I do. And that is woven through what I choose to do and how I choose to frame myself within my universe, within my world. It's how I relate to my spirituality. And that's where I made the flip from participating sometimes in my sister's circle to realizing that I was engaging with spirituality in a powerful way while I was there. And I wasn't coming into a circle of witches. I was a witch in a circle of witches. And once that flipped, it was stereotypical to say, but it was night and day. All of a sudden, there was this depth in my experience that I was allowing myself to have, where I had been holding myself sort of out of the circle. Once I made that choice, I could look back and see many things that illustrated, yep, I'm a witch. And I've been a witch for a very long time. I just haven't recognized it until now. My love for engaging with soil, because I'm an earth mama, literally, I am an earth mama. How much I get and am fed by as I feed the land. The fact that it doesn't matter if it's around Samhain or not, the veil is always thin around me. I see and hear from the spiritual ancestors very routinely. And the closer we get to Samhain, the more prevalent it becomes. But I've had that in my life since I was a child, since my earliest memories. And as a matter of fact, there are some times where, as an adult, I go back and I have to rewrite how I translate a memory, because something that I thought was a dream or a hallucination was actually me engaging with the dead. And it takes me repetition to go back and rewrite these things and reframe them as I now know my experiences to be. And then that has played out in basic schooling. When I was in middle school, there was a whole group of people who were like, she's a witch. And the things I would draw and the poetry that I would write. And at the time I was like, why are you being such a bully? No, I'm just a normal person. Now I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, actually, no, they're right. I was 100% a witch.
You thought that they were insulting you, but no, they were just pointing out she's a witch.
They were pointing out, yeah,
with a lot of enthusiasm.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. So I'm actually going to ask you, what was it like for you growing up in a house with a witchy mom?
Very open and accepting. And I think that I mentioned that a little bit earlier whenever we were talking about when I knew that I was a witch. And like that, I guess I never had like that like light switch moment of just, oh, it makes so much sense. It was just kind of eventually I had like that term to fit the description. But it's been very open. And I really appreciate that between our family and like being able to have those experiences that are just really interesting some of the time, about like going to the circle or going to festivals or like doing things inside of my like room. Like we occasionally cleanse my room. I've started learning more about crystals. We've done tarot things. And I know that recently, whenever I came back for winter break, we bought a book and we were going to learn how to do tarot readings together. And we eventually stopped, I guess, like following through with that more. But then that became something that we would do whenever I was away from home. And so that witchy connection prevailed through the distance that we had.
Oh, that's powerful.
Was there ever maybe you could talk about what was it like growing up as a witchlet? Wait, which is that what? Witchling. Growing up as a witchling, and but also like outside of your house, what was it like for you going to school or connecting with friends?
Generally, I am not out of the broom closet to a lot of people. I know that I am very, I guess, open. Like I wear a pentacle, which I guess is like point one of, oh, this could be like a title for this person that I'm meeting. But a lot of people haven't either noticed it, haven't ever brought it up, or any of those things. I know that generally at this moment, like with the pentacle that I'm currently wearing, it's on like a long chain that can go down whatever item of clothing I'm wearing, because I know that there are some instances where it's not the best idea to wear my pentacle just like higher on my chest so that it's more visible. I know that in the past, whenever I didn't have the longer chain for it to rest on, I would take it off and I'd put it in my pocket and then wait until I was out of like the home or the situation, and I would like put it back on again. I've also had some instances of people labeling it as a pentagram and my having to like, no, this is a pentacle. I promise. I know what I'm wearing. It's a pentacle. And I've had to have those conversations with people. And thankfully, as of right now, a lot of the times whenever I do have those conversations about the pentacle or the craft, a lot of people are very open about it, which I really appreciate. And it's amazing.
Thank you. I'd like to kind of circle back to something that your mom said. She mentioned you grabbing like earth and your experience of water and running through the air. And I was wondering, is there we've talked a number of times about how we feel about the elements. Is there an element that you identify with? Is there something? Is there an element that you identify with?
Water.
Mom called that one.
Yeah. I do. I enjoy water. I always want to go to a pool, a lake, a river, an ocean. I always try to find those outlets to kind of, I can't think of the word, submerge myself in.
Yeah, submerge. Yeah.
Submerge. Thank you. That's the one that I was looking for.
Or immerse, whichever. Yeah, you were trying to combine those. Immerse
I was trying to bring the verb to the water.
There you go.
Do you have any memories from growing up that really affirm your witchiness?
Yes. So I was really into mythical creatures, and as I got older, I would look up spells to do because I wanted to like embody certain like mythical aspects. And so I would go and I would create these like little potions and all of that stuff. And so I know that whenever Mom and I had talked earlier, that we had mentioned that as well about that potion making, and I had completely forgotten about like that stage that I went through for a while.
Yeah.
We had a rule in our house that because about the time she learned how to really read to learn, she started looking up spells and writing spells down in her journal. And so we had a rule in our household that she could enact the spells as she wanted to, but nothing that she had to drink and nothing that she had to rub on her skin.
You're such a good mom. So please.
Sorry. I was also not allowed to use a specific salt. I was told to use a specific salt because I used it so often.
Gotcha. I was like, wait, what kind of salt? Okay, I'm with you now.
None of Mama's expensive salts.
Like you come home, it's like, I love you, my darling. But so I actually that's a nice segue for me. I'd like to know. I'd like to ask you, Lynx. What kind of so you talked about when Luna was born that you were just kind of coming out of your experience of Christianity. And so was there when she was born, was there a period where you were kind of envisioning a particular spiritual practice for her, or
Yes, actually there was. I was viewing this through my Christianity lens. But I very much I was counting the days until I could get Luna baptized and have her be the faith that we were in allowed children to be blessed. And then at a very young age, they could take their first baptism. They could take their first communion. And I was all about it. And I had plans and I had things written out. And then I realized as I was making the spiritual transition for myself that what I really wanted for Luna was a sense of belonging and a sense of community and a sense of having an ethical path that she would follow. So when I made that realization, it was a very easy switch to make in between these two systems. So even though the names that I gave to what I wanted for my daughter changed, what I wanted for my daughter did not change. Actually, through witchcraft is clearer for me than any predestined path that may have been prescribed through any other system. But that falls in alignment with how I view my own spirituality, and it aligns very, very simply with the freedom and the openness that I try to allow for Luna as she has been growing and developing. And now I don't allow it. Now it's just a matter of her making her choice, that she has free agency for doing what she's going to do and make the choices that she's going to make.
Can I do a follow-up question to Luna? So, and to the extent that you feel comfortable or you really even want to answer this question, was there a time when, you were comparing how what the spiritual conditions were in your home, and then with friends, and their maybe traditions or their spiritual paths? Did you ever do comparisons, or did you ever look at yourself through, and just to, comparing yourself maybe to how they were being raised in terms of their spiritual traditions?
I guess sometimes, not as often as I feel like I would, if that makes any sense. But I know that, like, in a lot of Christians' households, children are to go to like Sunday school or church every week and things like that. But I've always been given the choice that it's, if you would, whenever the opportunity came, if you would like to come to the circle, you may. If you would like to go to this festival, you can. There's not necessarily any, I guess, school you'd have to go to. If you want to practice, you can. And I liked that openness and that freedom that it gave me, and that translates into my present as well, where whenever I'm at school, I don't have to do these things. I don't have to practice. I don't have to go to festivals. There's no obligations. It's within witchcraft. It's you practice as you please, and whatever works for you is amazing. I'm glad that it does. And so that freedom was fantastic.
Great. Thank you.
Lynx, I was wondering if you might share more about your desire. You framed it as when Luna was born, you wanted her to have these, what I would call rituals, marking different things. And it's what I kind of heard you say was, as you reframed your spirituality in your life, then you reframed the way that would show up for her. And I was just curious if you could speak to, how did you see that show up for her? And were there things that you feel comfortable with sharing that fed those desires that you had to mark things for her spiritually? And how did they show up in her growth?
Well, rites of passage are part of many, many religious practices. And they are ways that we mark and frame the context of our lives. And they demonstrate age and ability level and levels of responsibility that can be taken or expected, or levels of responsibility that are no longer expected. And so having those part of her life was important to me. But that sense of kinship and of having a group and having an identity, they weren't as connected to those as I had originally thought that they would be. That came from the lens that I was choosing to see them through. Now, I've talked with my sister a couple of times about rites of passage and what they'll mean and what they could be through witchcraft. And so there have been a couple that we have done. We marked when we went to a festival, we marked a transition for Luna and made a request of the circle when we went, that there be a recognition for Luna's transition from maiden into mother. That was very important to me. I'm not going to lie. I cried all the way through. It was wonderful. It was just wonderful. And then we invited a group from the circle who had gathered, who Luna knew. We invited her to make a transition from being a maiden into choosing to be in the craft. And we asked her if she wanted to make that transition. And if she did, then it would go from, this is what I'm doing, and this is the household that we're living in, into this is what I'm doing and why. and what are your thoughts about this? And do you want to participate in this with me? And then we would start opening up the experiences. And she said that she did want that. And so we created a rite of passage for her to step more fully into the craft. And I was very proud of myself because I held it together and I didn't cry until after I got home. But creating those moments was more about helping to create that framework and that understanding of stage of life and level of responsibility and level of actionability that I can choose to do this with my life. I can choose to engage with my spirituality in this way. That's how I see it. And that's how I was looking. That's how I was looking at these rites of passage for my daughter previously when I was a Christian, and then transitioning over into whenever I embraced my witchcraft. Did that answer your question? Did I answer? I feel like I talked in a circle on that one.
Well, the beauty of this is that we'll start with one question and then we'll go to other stuff and you give us more insight. So it's beautifully put. And both of you, thank you. I mean, this is fabulous. This is wondrous insight into something that I never had. So it's just really beautiful to see.
Luna, you made a face while your mom was talking. Is there anything that you want to share?
I didn't know that you had requested that. I know the exact moment that you're talking about whenever I transitioned from maiden to mother, and I did not know that you requested that they do that. I thought that was just a normal thing that happened. So how many years has it been? And this is the first time I'm hearing of this.
It's magic.
Yeah, and beautiful, and those moments are so beautiful, and I'm so glad that there was that intentionality around it, right? Lynx, were there any challenges for you as you raising a witchy daughter, particularly we're in Texas. I mean, let's be clear, we're in Texas, okay? And so were there any challenges in terms of like stereotypes or just maybe concerns or fears?
I was fairly regularly concerned about discussing our spirituality. It's such a part of who I am. It's such a part of what I do that there's a level of me that feels hypervigilant about muting or encoding or finding a way to redirect and discuss what I believe and how I experience the world and how I communicate that with my child, and having her feel beautiful and powerful and richly enveloped in her spirituality in the way other faiths can just live, that we cannot, that it's an active guarding in my workplaces. And I have worked in several locations over my lifetime, and I have never worked in a place where there hasn't been mistrust, derogatory language about, or downright vilification of witches or witchcraft. And so I know that there is not ground for me to be open and express my spirituality. And so there has been a common conversation in our household about, wasn't that an amazing experience? Wasn't that wonderful? Wasn't it incredible to experience the goddess in this way, to feel this amazing spiritual foundational female energy, and to dance and to sing and to get up in the middle of the night and drive out so that we can dance and sing under the moon and all of these things. And yet we can't talk about that. And especially whenever Luna was younger, to advise her against talking about that. And it was hard and it hurt me, but it was necessary. It was necessary because who you are plays out so much in what your opportunities are in our culture. And your opportunities in middle school lead to what you will be allowed to do or how you will be seen and then allowed to do things in high school. And what happens in high school is what you can write on your letters so that you can get into college. And so having, especially in Texas, having a negative experience, even if it's something as far back as middle school, really can have incredibly long-term consequences. Now, you can also write this amazing college experience, what do they call it? A college admissions letter about
essays,
how I rose above when I, named my spirituality. But you got to be applying to the right college, man, because otherwise, that's not going to play out very well either. There's just so many levels and layers that don't have to be, but are. And that's really the biggest challenge that we had, that having to mute ourselves. It didn't play out very often with Luna's friends, that she would invite people over. They knew that our household was fun and that things were loose and relaxed and cool. But there were some times whenever we would engage with the parents of her friends, and I would see things crop up and have to address them. There's one that popped up into my memory. That was, I had dropped the girls off at Luna's friend's house, and her father came out and opened up the car door to let his daughter out of the car. And the girls got out and were running around in the front yard and talking to each other. And so I was conversing with him while we waited for the girls to get done. And then I was going to bring Luna home. And he looked over into my car and he saw a bent spoon. And it was resting towards the dashboard of my car. And he made a comment about it. And he didn't know what he was saying. But I knew what he was saying. And he was making comments about, about magicianship and you bend it with the power of your mind. And like, he was being all talking about like 1960s kind of vibe and the cool Joe and all that kind of thing. And I was just like, it's and grabbed my daughter and we headed out. But that's just one of those things where he doesn't know that what he's talking about as being just this kind of cool thing that you might pick up in a novelty shop represents a deeply spiritual moment for me and for my daughter, because she has bent spoons too.
I'm going to ask this question, and I'd love for if both of you could chime in with your answers. What advice would you give to anyone, to parents, other parents or people that or anyone listening actually, who have witchy children, and to maybe children who are listening and might be kind of concerned about coming out of the broom closet?
I don't know. This is another tough question that Mom and I had to talk about last night. And I think that the number one thing that I remember saying was safety. About it's listen to your intuition, which is intuition is super. It's fantastic. And listen to your intuition. Make sure that the situation in which you are in is safe. That's always the first point of thing, is that you want to create a safe environment for yourself. You want to make sure that you're going to be okay and that you're going to be, loved no matter what. But once you do find that space, you're set. Mm-hmm. Like once you create that circle, you're going to have amazing friends. You're going to have more enriched relationships with parents, siblings, chosen family as well. And that would be the biggest thing that I would suggest, is just creating those safe spaces. The one after that would be boundaries, which is another major thing that could go along with the aspect of creating that safe space and making sure that the people who know about your witchiness know when it's okay to address you as such, like in other circumstances, or just all of those things. And especially with children as well, like if you have a witchy child, making sure, like, as my mother had said earlier, like, okay, you do this, just don't drink it and don't put it on your body. Just simple things like that. They don't always need to be incredibly, I can't think of the word, I guess, like stern. They can be more fun. Like in those instances of my making potions, like, just please don't ingest them. But having those boundaries will contribute to creating that safe space with everyone who's around you.
Thank you. Thank you. What about you, Lynx?
Thinking about how I've described rites of passage and the way I view my spirituality as being frameworks. And those frameworks are how I see myself and how I choose to relate to the world and to my daughter and to others in my circle. Having a witchling for a child is seeing the best of myself in the lens of eternity, that my child is how I continue physically on this plane, even after I am no longer on this plane. Now, I have told Luna 100 years after she dies, I am still her mother. But I get to choose how I interact with her now. I get to choose how much I can invest in my love and my connection with her, and how much I can open myself to receiving that love and connection in return. The world around us would have us feel that our pathways are small and set, but our pathways are not small and our pathways are not set. We have a great deal of freedom and agency to determine how we will have a relationship and how much and how deep of a relationship we will have and how long it will last and how expansive it is and how permissive it is. And so that's really what I would make as a recommendation for a parent of a witchling. Think through, what type of relationship do you want with this beautiful soul that you have been gifted for the time on this planet? What do you want? It doesn't have to be small and set. It can be anything. And how much are you willing to invest and give up in order to have the potential for what could come? It's an amazing opportunity, and it will be whatever I allow it to be. She will be who she is going to be, regardless of me, in spite of me. And it's my opportunity to meet her wherever that may be. That's my privilege.
Beautifully put. Thank you so much.
So I have a question I'm going to ask each of you, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Luna, what is something that you have loved about having a witchy mom?
The experiences that set me apart, I guess, from other people who might do the exact same thing. Like, I know that we have traveled a lot. We have traveled a lot. And every single time that we go to a new place, we find another way to just keep that spirituality, just be a witch. Like, we'll be standing on top of a mountain and almost get struck by lightning, but we're standing in the rain.
Oh my gosh. She got hit by lightning.
So I just feel like that. I don't know that we should even edit that out. Like, that's like, I just feel like you're talking about electronic magic, like electricity, you know, and then like,
and then all of a sudden,
so we're zooming right now. So when that happened, all of a sudden she cut out and the connection went down. And her mom, who's 5 yards from her, it's fine. It's fine. So
this is not unusual in our household.
Yeah. So Luna, would you want to pick up? Well, just in case we get disconnected, we'll reconnect. But Luna, do you want to pick up?
So we'll be like just on a random mountain. It's storming outside, and there's lightning everywhere, and start to get that crackling feeling, and just the loud explosion of lightning, and you're just like, wow, I almost got struck by lightning. And you're just standing out there like dancing in the rain. trying to find like a small little roof and underneath as you're like running through it. But those are good memories, or just being in a temple in Vietnam all together, like burning little pieces of paper with like affirmations or wishes or anything along those lines. Yeah. And just being able to look back and say that I've been able to do those things and then have that connection with them is undescribable. I don't really have a fantastic way of putting it because of how cool it is to say some of those things.
So I know you're going to ask a question of Lynx, but I just want to say, just because now you're both in the same screen, the energy has totally changed.
I like it a lot.
I know. Just watching the two of you look at each other. That's just so amazing. So that lightning strike on your laptop was probably the best thing that could have happened for the podcast episode. So thank you. So you were
So Lynx, I'm going to toss it over to you. What do you love about having a witchy daughter?
The energy and the spontaneity and how free my witchling feels to be herself. There is a candor that she has that I see many of her friends tamp down in order to be I don't have a better word, to be compliant, to be who they feel they are expected to be. Whereas my witchling doesn't hesitate to express herself and to tell me who she is, sometimes to just flat out inform, this is what's happening. Are you okay with it or not?
Yeah, well, you raised that, so.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But that it's rewarding when that happens. There are times when Luna was younger and going through traditional teenage things, and I would think back to whenever she was an infant and she was teething, and she would bite sometimes, but she didn't know any better. Her jaws hurt, her gums hurt, and so she would chew on things because chewing on things is how you make it not hurt anymore. And there were times whenever I would think to myself, I invited this. This is how I invited her. I have taught her to be as thus, and therefore this is what it is. And I would remind myself that it was a privilege for me to have a daughter who felt so safe that she could express herself for how she was, and I could establish boundaries with her, knowing that of everyone in the world, I was the safe one for her to bite. And that it could sound negative, but to me, it's an incredible positive and a gift of raising a little witch who knows who she is, even as she's figuring out who that is, that she's very clear about who she is.
You know, that there have been certain times whenever just you and I have sat down and like expressed boundaries, and we've both been like, whoa. yeah, that makes sense. Got 100%. And it's just go our separate ways again. And like, even whenever I'm long distance, like we've had FaceTimes where she and I have the exact same experience. Just like, you're right. Won't do that again. Good night.
Check. Got it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I have a question, because I kind of know part of this answer, but I'd love to hear your take on this. What's Halloween or Samhain, depending on how you'd like to refer to it, like in your house?
Wild.
What do you mean?
So I think that Halloween was very average for me for a few years, of just like dressing up, going around, getting candy, coming back, and then separating out the candy that I wanted and didn't want with my friends. And then eventually that turned into go trick-or-treating, cut it short, come back, do the family activity. and just hang out with them for the rest of the night. I think our first thing was stick figures. We like wore all black and just like put glow sticks to make a stick figure on ourselves. And we like just walked around and did random things with each other. But that was our first one. And then ever since then, they've become progressively more intricate as we like continue to do like Halloween esque things with our home and with our community. And then like, I think, was it last year? Was the full moon on Halloween?
What did you ask? I'm sorry.
It wasn't last year.
It wasn't last year. It was before last year, because last year I wasn't home for Halloween. It was before last year was that full moon, and I remember us going over to my aunt's house and all sitting in the backyard with like a fire burning, just like complete after hours. Like it's it's no longer October, and we're there like looking up at the full moon, just with complete awe that Halloween ended up happening with one. But it just Halloween, I love Halloween so much. I think we've talked about it. I'm flying home for Halloween this year, so I'm really excited about that. Yeah.
Halloween for us is the mundane way of expressing Samhain, and Samhain for us is all about deep, rich family and community connection, and exploring and investigating our creativity. And for me, it's about experiencing the other side as well. It's about really deeply listening to the beloved ancestors, our beloved dead. Having an altar in my space, which my sister helped me to bring out more into the rest of the house. I've always kind of had it back in my bedroom area. And this last year was the first year that it moved out into the front area of the house. But our experiences, there's actually one earlier than what she was expressing, but she spent so much time with her friends that she didn't really experience it at the house. And we did vampires the year before. It was the first year that we really decked out the garage and dressed in theme. I created things, but the expression that we do for Samhain, for Halloween, is about engaging with our community. And for me, it's one of my love languages is acts of service. And so for me, it's an act of service in allowing me to communicate and experience deeply on this one night in a way that I really can't do the rest of the year. It's just not a thing. We do Halloween the way other families do Christmas. Inviting people over, and it takes all day, and there's a big meal, and everybody has a bunch of fun, and we play games, and we dress funny, and we engage with the neighborhood, and there's a yard display, and it's a lot of the things that people check off for Christmas. That's Halloween for us.
That's brilliant.
It seems like, throwing it back to something you mentioned earlier, it's the one time of the year where people don't question the bent spoon, where people actually appreciate it and are like, oh my gosh, y'all always do something so amazing. Thank you so much. And it's like that one night of the year where that's the attitude, as opposed to a different sort of attitude.
So, is there something that we haven't asked you that you kind of wish we had, or is there something else you'd like to add? We'd love to hear it.
I think one of the things before my computer died, on the little notes app that I was taking notes on, my mother had brought up like a gift that she had about like whenever the veil is thin, which the veil is always thin, but how she could like see spirits and things like that. And I thankfully don't have that. I feel like I'd be a little scared. But my intuition is insanely accurate. And it always has been. Like, I remember whenever I would wake up for school and I were to get like a slightly anxious feeling that wasn't just general anxiety, I'd be able to like go through my schedule in my head and just like pinpoint in which time period something was going to happen. So it'd be like, I forgot to do an assignment, or the teacher's not there that day, or anything like that. And I would be able to pick out those moments. And even for things that are bigger, I'm able to call things before they happen. And I guess it's probably just energy. Like I know that there have been times where I've like checked up on people and been like, hey, is something going on? Like I'm getting all anxious and I'm thinking about you. I don't know what's happening, but I'd like to make sure that everything's fine. Like sometimes like stuff is going down, and that could be like, I guess, friend issues, or sometimes even as big as like home things that happen. I've been able to kind of like, I know the way that I described it yesterday with Mom was that I sense a disturbance in the force. But yeah, just that whole intuition, like I'm always really good at it and like detecting people's emotions. And I guess that's more of like an empath, but I generally see it as more of intuition and those energies.
Thank you. What about anything, Lynx, that you'd like to add?
You had asked me how I saw witchiness play out in Luna. And I'm wondering, Luna, how do you see witchiness, like from your child's eyes? How have you seen witchiness play out in me, in your mother?
So the main thing that I remember saying, and that is still like the thing that I can recall the best, is dirt. She really loves gardening, and so she'll go out in the 100-degree Texas weather and go like plant things and spread the soil and spread the gravel and all the rocks and make sure everything looks really nice. She'll water the plants. She'll talk to the plants. She goes to other people's houses and she does the exact same thing. And she'll come in covered in dirt, just like the biggest smile on her face. And I've tried to do it, but it's hot. I'm sweaty. I'm getting bitten by things. And I'd like to go inside.
Yeah, I'm feeling you.
So yeah. So it's always about that witchy earth mama, and like you're an earth baby, I'm a water baby. And so I think that's the biggest role that I've been able to see, is your connection with the earth in that way.
Thank you. That's and I have benefited from that because she's dug in the earth at my house too. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I just want to say, I've been kind of saying this like back and forth throughout the episode, but I just want to say thank you so much, not only for agreeing to be on here, but for sharing so openly and honestly and articulating these ideas, your experiences so well and so clearly. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you to like whatever gods or goddesses there may be for electricity, for whatever happened, Luna. And also I'd like to say thank you to the familiar that that people may have heard running around. Do y'all want to introduce them so that people can know who's the guest, our guest?
Yes. So my cat Simon is really wanting attention during this, especially whenever we were in two separate rooms. He would wander over to my mother's room and start meowing at the door, and I'd mute myself and just like, Simon, come on. He's currently laying in my lap in a basket. And I was going to bring up something along the lines of that too, about my familiar and how he and I have a really special little connection. So yeah.
Thank you for introducing Simon.
Simon takes very good care of her.
Yes, he does.
It's such a beautiful thing to see. Thank you.
As we like to do to close our episode each time, normally Kimberlyn and I read a poem, but as our guests, we're excited that y'all are going to read one. So do you want to say anything about what you picked?
So this poem comes from a book by Nora Roberts called Charmed. And when Luna agreed that she wanted to have a rite of passage into the craft, I took this poem and I adjusted it to the situation. So we're going to read the slightly adjusted version of this poem. And if you want to understand where it came from, go check out the book. A star dawns in the night.
Light from life, blood through blood, to shine its light.
Through love, given the gift of birth.
Breath to death, to walk the earth.
Magic woven through blood and bone.
Hers to choose, to take and own.
Charm of moon, light of sun.
Never forgetting,
And it harm none.
That's the sound of I was going to say my head exploding. That's the sound of my heart exploding.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Beautiful. And it sounds like it would be perfect for your rite of passage. Well done.
Thank you both so much for sharing that here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this area of our lives.
We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!